So you form your LLC, which state do you pick? This is a question a lot of entrepreneurs ask, and there's a lot of different answers. There's a couple of things you got to think about. First is expenses. Every LLC and every company has administrative expenses. You want to think about franchise taxes. You want to think about asset protection. The other thing you want to think about is costs. How much is it going to cost? There's a yearly fee that you have to pay for administration, and there's also something called franchise tax, which means in some states, if it goes above, if your gross receipts, that means how much you bought and sold, whether it's services, whether it's goods, whether it's whatever. If it goes above a certain amount, the state will begin to charge a franchise tax. As you might guess, this is much higher in some states than it is in others. And the ceiling is higher or lower depending on some states. In some states, it's $5 million in gross receipts. In other states, it's $1 million. So this is something you want to consider, especially considering what your business is. If you're selling a lot, if you're moving a lot of product, then it's good to find a state with a higher ceiling for gross receipts. That's something you want to take into consideration. You also want to think about the asset protection side of things, which we already talked about. You want to think about the administrative fees, and you want to think about registered agents, etc. There's companies in every state that can act as your registered agents, but they also charge a fee. So if you're not living in that state and you don't want to be the registered agent for your own entity, you can hire a company. There's a great company called ISL that we use a lot. They're in all 50 states. You can use them. What a registered agent does is they take service, legal service on your behalf. So if you get sued, you're required by law to have someone in the state that you're registered in taking service on your behalf. It's part of the requirement for doing business in that state under the protection of that state. So that's something else to think about. You want to think about charging order protection. You want to think about franchise tax. You want to think about administrative fees. Well, I think the cheapest state right now is Wyoming. That's why it's so popular. But there's other disadvantages of Wyoming, such as there's not as much law built up as compared to a state like Delaware, for example. There's advantages and disadvantages to everywhere. Some are cheaper, some are more expensive, but there's advantages that you want to think about there. And then registered agent. Once you get those things, select a good state, you're on your way.